All right. Hello, friends. Good morning to you. It is Tuesday. Tuesday. That's what it is today. Thank you so much for hanging out, for joining us for this Bible study this morning. I am so grateful that you're here with me. If you could please subscribe to the channel, we'd appreciate that. You can also click that bell icon to receive notifications when we go live. And of course, sharing is caring. So please feel free to share this as well. Today, we're going to be talking about life in the period of the Judges. So we've been now going through the book of Judges for several weeks, a little chunk at a time, right here and there. It's one of those one of those books that people think that they like, oh, I know about Judges. I've heard of Samson. And then they actually read the book and they're like, I don't know anything about this. And so it's one of those books we've decided to give it a little bit of time here on the Worship Hangover to grow a little bit and to understand that. So we've been going through it, and it's been really, really good. We just finished Samson's story yesterday. After weeks of going through the book of Judges, we finally made it to Samson, and then yesterday we finished his story. And so that was exciting. And so now we are moving on. And the question that we're really going to be answering for really the rest of the book is, what was life actually like by this time in the period of Judges? Like, how far? So we all read Joshua, right? We all read Joshua, and we have an understanding of what life might have been like in that period and how those people were, right? But then by the time you get to the end of the book of Judges, how far have they gone? What has life become? And so that's the question that we're going to be answering for the rest of the book. It's going to take us several more days to get through the rest of the book, and we will just press through it. So today is a little bit of a crazy story about a man named Micah. It's not that Micah, okay? So it's a different Micah, but a man. If you're like, oh, Micah, no, not that Micah. It's a different Micah, and you're going to learn why it's important that I differentiate the two here in a little bit. But we're going to learn from or about a man named Micah. We're going to learn about a Levite. We're going to learn a little bit about what life was like. So I'm going to read it. We'll stop. We'll discuss it, and we'll have a little bit of Bible under our belt today. So that's a win too. Here you go. Judges chapter 17. Begin reading at verse 1. It says that there was a man of the hill country of Ephraim whose name was Micah, and he said to his mother, the 1,100 pieces of silver that were taken from you, about which you uttered a curse and also spoke it in my ears, behold, the silver is with me. I took it. I took it. And his mother said, blessed be my son by the Lord. Now, this is super interesting. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. So we don't really know anything about Micah other than what, like, the text is just going to kind of tell us a story about Micah's life from this point on. We really don't know anything about Micah. We don't know anything about his formative years. We don't really know much, but whenever his mom uses the word Lord, she does use Yahweh, which is like a very respectful way to say God. She does use that. So, excuse me, that's not COVID. And if it is, my microphone just got it. But it's not. So she uses the word Yahweh. So that signifies to us that she has some understanding of the greatness of who she's speaking about, right? She has some understanding of who God really is. That's why she does that. Drinking some Black Bear coffee again this morning. A little bit of Bible and a lot of coffee is good for the soul. So we know that little backstory, and then the other thing that we know about him is he just stole 1,100 pieces of silver from his mom. We don't really know how much silver it was in weight, because it just the Hebrew text literally says like 1,100 silver is what it says, and so we don't really know like the true weight. Most people assume that it was 1,100 shekels of silver, which is the same amount of money that was promised to Delilah for trapping Samson. You can see the corollary that happens there. But 1,100 pieces of silver. He stole them from his mom. His mom uttered a curse about it, which is a little bit weird to us in this day, but in some cultures in this time period, it would be very common for you to publicly curse. Like if somebody had stolen something from you or done something against you, to go out and to publicly curse that action or that theft, right? To let that be known. And what you were doing in publicly cursing them is you were trying to put pressure on the one who had wronged you to make amends. That's what you're doing. And that's obviously what she's done. And it's worked here for her son. Her mom publicly cursed the person who stole 1,100 pieces of silver. Their son returns them. The weird part to me, though, the really weird part to me is then she blesses him, right? That's really weird to me. I took it, and his mother say, "Blessed be my son by the Lord." In verse 3, he restored the 1,100 pieces of silver to his mother, and his mother said, "I dedicate the silver to the Lord from my hand for my son to make a carved image and a metal image. Now, therefore, I will restore it to you." So here's what's interesting, okay? This is not uncommon in this culture where you would create this curse for something that had been stolen. If the person who restored it to you, you would then need to offset the curse with a blessing. That was a very common thing. It's not necessarily a godly principle or biblical principle, but it was a normal activity, right? So it would make sense for her to be like, okay, I use this 1,100 pieces of silver to curse you. Now I'm going to use this 1,100 pieces of silver to bless you. And then the weird part is she then takes this 1,100 pieces of silver blessing and puts it in her son's care. That's a little bit weird, right? Verse 3, and he restored the 1,100 pieces of silver to his mother. His mother said, "I dedicated that the silver to the Lord from my hand for my son to make a carved image," she said. "A metal image. Now, therefore, I will restore it to you." So she's going to make an idol out of this? So in one instance, she uses Yahweh, the perfect form of God, the high form of God. And in the next hand, she is blessing her son by building an idol out of silver. What do you believe? Who do you follow? I don't know. So, verse 4, when he restored the money to his mother took 200 pieces of silver and gave it to the silversmith, who made it into a carved image, a metal image, and it was in the house of Micah. And the man Micah had a shrine, and he made an ephod and household gods, and ordained one of his sons, who became his priest. And in those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. Now remember, there were 1,100 pieces of silver. 1,100 pieces of silver is what she was going to give to God, so that God would bless her son. Yet whenever she did actually make this idol, whenever she did follow through on what she was going to give, she actually only used 200 pieces of silver, and then she did the least godly thing she could with it. She made an idol out of it. So what happened to the other 900 pieces? So she didn't even follow through on her true blessing, right? Now she gave all 1,100, the idol from 200 pieces and the other 900, they were all given to her son's care. And her son created this ephod with it, right? So like basically he builds his own temple, and he names his son as priest of his temple. And we don't know the following that he might have built, right? We don't know, but he creates in this moment this false religion that is not of the one true God. It's unbelievable to see what's happening here. Like he builds in his house this false church, right? This is not at all in line with how God wanted to be worshipped, but this is exactly what he does. Verse 7, it says that there was a young man of Bethlehem in Judah, of the family of Judah, who was a Levite, and he sojourned there. Not that he went there intentionally, but that's just where he found himself. Verse 8, and the man departed from the town of Bethlehem in Judah to sojourn to where he could find a place. He was down on his luck, and he journeyed, and he came to the hill country of Ephraim, to the house of Micah. And Micah said to him, "Where do you come from?" And he said to him, "I'm a Levite of Bethlehem in Judah, and I'm going to sojourn where I may find a place." And Micah said to him, "Stay with me and be to me a father and a priest, and I will give you 10 pieces of silver a year and a suit of clothes and your living." And the Levite went in. Okay, so here's what's happening, right? He's created his own religion. He's built his own church. He has the shrine. He has all these other idols, right, that he's bowing down to. He's turned his son into a priest, and now he's happened upon this Levite who was in poor circumstance, and he said, "Oh, have I got a job offer for you. Now, a Levite was a priest of Israel. A Levite should know the one true God. Like, this man should know exactly what God wants, right? And so obviously the Levite's not going to fall for this trap. Verse 11, and the Levite was content to dwell with the man. And the young man became to him like one of his sons, and Micah ordained the Levite. How is Micah ordaining a Levite? A Levite's already ordained. And the young man became his priest and was in the house of Micah. Then Micah said, now I know the Lord will prosper me because I have a Levite as a priest. See, here's what he's doing. This is a guy who is trying to build for himself something. That's what he's doing here, right? He's trying to build something for himself. So he takes this 1,100 pieces of silver from his mom. He treats it as an investment. He builds himself an ephod. He names his son a priest. He builds his own religion. He gets himself a little following. When the Levite comes, he then takes advantage of the Levite's poor situation. The Levite foolishly allows him to do so, maybe because he is also so far from what God wanted him to be that it really doesn't matter anymore. So he allows himself to be ordained by this man. Of course, a Levite brings legitimacy to this church that this man is building because there's an actual real Levite there. So there's more people there. And now that I have a Levite as a priest, right, the Lord will prosper me. This guy thinks that anything good coming to him is going to come to him at the hand of the Lord. Culture is so mixed up, what we're reading. Culture is so mixed up at this point that they live their lives in opposition with what God wants, yet they still believe that any blessing that comes their way is a blessing from the Lord. That somehow the Lord is going to bless their life in opposition with what the Lord wants. I don't know. I have a feeling anything positive that comes his way is not a blessing from the Lord's hand. What is life like in the period of Judges? Well, Judges 17:6 tells us, in those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. Sounds like life in Judges wasn't so different from life today. That's it. If you find this video helpful, give us a thumbs up. If you have a question or a comment, you can drop it in the comments sections. Of course, you can subscribe to the channel, click that bell icon to receive notifications when we go live. And if you would share this video with one person who you believe would find it helpful, I would greatly appreciate it. That's it for today. Thanks so much for watching. I love you guys. I don't think I'll be back on here for the next 2 days because we're going to be traveling again, looking at houses. So it may be Friday before you get to see my beautiful face again. But I'll see you